Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
We're
Miss
doing
Missy
okay today.
Robinson, how are you doing?
We're doing okay today. We're
Good.
doing
Thank you for joining us.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited
yeah.
about the conversation.
Yeah. So tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do, because I know who you are. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you're fantastic, but they don't know. So tell
Oh,
them.
I want to start with where I come from. So I am the daughter of Darren Robinson, Washington, D.C., and the daughter of Carolyn Johnson, Rochester, New York. I am the sister of Mark Robinson. I am the aunt of Milena and Mariana Robinson. Um, and a person that I really want to call into the space is my great grandmother on my father's side. I'm biracial, so I have white family, I have Black family. My Black great grandmother, her name is Ordrin Sabria Akil. And she and my family culture, we really view as the root of our creativity, our resiliency. So I really want to call her into the space as well. But that's where I come from. My name is Missy Tahira Robinson. Tahira is an inheritance from my grandmother. And I'm a creative. I'm a creative. I'm a sensitive being. I am a person who navigates pain of different types. I am a person who is oftentimes in wonder at the earth. I'm a person who really prioritizes loving relationship. And I believe that my creative practice is really an extension of my abilities to love. I have been dancing since I was very, very young. And it was an answer to how shy and introverted as I was as a child. So the group sports were kind of like out of possibility for me as a young person. So dance from the beginning has been, and when I say dance, I mean you know, contemporary modern dance that can range from experimental to lyrical, but that is where my professional life has been rooted. Um, but it has always been an answer to the places where I didn't quite feel well, this sort of embodiment. And then, I went on, I trained, I began my professional life as a dancer. And in that time, visual art practice sort of came to life. That was initially very like therapeutic, very much the place that I went when I was not feeling well, the place where I could see something beautiful grow. But that practice has now sort of become the dominant expression of my artistry, at least at this point in my life. So I make maximalist, vibrant visual art that is very spiritually rooted. I also like to design spaces, oftentimes for other performance makers, so sets and portals for other people. And then I have a creative archiving practice. So I've been getting more and more into memory keeping work, memory keeping through photography, through video, through editing, but also through visual art response to certain moments in time or certain processes or certain efforts from other people. Yes, and the other thing that I want to name about myself is that I'm a caregiver, both like in my spirit, but also professionally. And that I do consider the work that I do with my client, she has dementia, she's an elder. I do consider this work art. Like I do consider the interpersonal relationship with someone whose mind is incredibly unique and changing often. That is, I think, an extension of my artistic practice as well. So that's who I am as an individual and also as an artist. Yes, that's what,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's like so loaded. Eh,
yeah,
it's so loaded and it's so much to unpack and it I kept wanting to like sip my coffee, as you're talking, but then I was
yes,
so like it was piping in my spirit and let me just say this. When I
mm,
first met you,
mm,
you had an energy that was very sweet, very innocent, very calming. I
Mm-hmm.
never forgot that about you. And I met you in a nightclub, I believe.
I remember.
At
I
a party or an event, something that,
had a word. Okay, you had a word.
yeah, I had a word for you. And I don't remember what the word is, honestly. I really don't remember, but I do remember something about you walking in your confidence or something like that.
Absolutely
But it
that.
was but I met you in a club,
Yeah.
at an event or at a party place. Um, and so, but I remembered you specifically. I mean, obviously, in full transparency to the audience, my Missy is a good friend of my daughter's. And
Yes.
so the interesting thing about it is that I always liked her friends,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There really isn't any friend that she has that I can say that I don't like. And
Which
if
that's
I,
interesting.
at least the ones who she brings around, let's just say that, right?
Yes.
But when I met you, you had an aura. And so, I go by people's energy for me.
Mhm.
So I respect and I align with what you just said about that, because being being able to be sensitive to that is strictly important, because it's a protective thing that you must have
Yeah.
as you move forward, right? The other thing that I really appreciated about you was that you were receptive to whatever I was saying to you, even if you turned your back later and go like, I don't want to hear nothing that lady said. But you were receptive and you were
Oh,
respectful to that, and your energy was great. The second encounter I had with you was really about you virtually sitting in on my Juneteenth birthday thing, right?
yes.
And you creating this piece of art for me
Yes.
that to this day I love, 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 love. And as you see, it's a part of my art, and it's going to be a part of my Art in June collage of work
Yeah.
that I put on the
Yes.
site. But
Yes.
that meant so much to me. You will not know how much that meant to me. And so I am so
Yeah.
grateful for that,
Yeah.
because it really allowed me to dig into the essence and the spirit of who you are as a woman,
Mm,
who you are as an artist,
mm,
and who you are as a spirit. And that
mm,
is the reason why I wanted to interview you.
mm.
Um, the other thing I want to say to you before I forget is thank you for acknowledging your ancestors,
Oh, absolutely.
and for acknowledging those whose shoulders you've stood on to be where you are. Um, and being able to be present with that,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Because, oftentimes people don't do that. People don't say, I come from blah, blah, blah. They go, I come from New York, or and this is what I do. And you did not start with that. And
Yeah.
so thank you for being mindful and aware in that way.
I feel like in a conversation where we're talking about art, I mean, we are the art of our ancestral, like we are the art embodied that our ancestral
Absolutely.
line makes. And yeah, I don't know. I can't have a conversation about art without honoring, that my birthing, was just that. Yeah. It's also, yeah, I also want to say and thank you, Miss June, because that was 2020, that virtual I mean, it was an event that was so many things. Like it was a birthday celebration, it was a PSA, it was a rally, it was in the same way that Art in June is just an intersection of so many interrelated but unique aspects of just our humanity. Like it was so many things, and it really this creative archiving work has mostly been wrapped around the dance and performance community, just because that's where my connections are. But that was one of the first times that I did that sort of witnessing and that sort of work for exclusively Black community, for someone who was not on my peer level, like for an event that was not sort of, in this little high art New York City bubble. And it was an initiation for me. And it was an intention that I am carrying forward, and that I feel at this point in my creative life is really like coming to fruition. Like, for example, I've recently been doing some photos and video editing for my acupuncturist. Her name is Kadada Field. She's incredible. Black woman, generations deep in Brooklyn, continuing healing traditions of her family. And it feels so right, you know, to expand and to be working with her in the mission of getting larger bodies, dark skinned bodies, getting this imagery into the wellness industry and the sphere. So yeah, I just want to thank you for being, you know, one of the first sort of like, like this practice is so much bigger
Yeah.
than what I
Yeah.
thought that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to continue that, because there's something that you said that, you know, I mean, I have a list of questions, so you've answered a couple of my questions already. But there was something that you said about the fact that, you know, you're a caretaker, a professional caretaker, and that the person that you're actually taking care of is suffering from dementia. And you know, that's something that I resonate with very closely, because my mom and I have cousins, and my
Uh,
sister now is are folks who have succumbed to
okay.
that memory loss thing, right? And so
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, and so I think nothing is accidental. I mean, you know, we're seeing now that dementia and Alzheimer's, you know, it's genetic in some
That,
ways, and they're talking about all of those different things,
um,
and the foods that you should eat or shouldn't eat and all of that stuff. But what's interesting to me about the whole dementia conversation is always, you know, something that I learned when my mom first started presenting with the disease was, how is it that she could be, you know, my mom wouldn't really say bad words, you know, every now and then she would. But
yeah.
when she started progressing in
Yeah.
the disease, she was cussing like nobody's business, right?
Okay. Divisions. Okay. They lose.
But the minute that you would put on a gospel or
Mm,
some opera or
mm,
some music for her, she was
mm,
calm, she was
mm,
smiling, she
mm.
was comfortable.
Yes. Music
And
was her
that always, and so, you know, that whole music and healing thing,
medicine.
that art and healing thing is real, right? It is real
Absolutely.
in a way that people don't, it's so real that we take it for granted. That's how real it is.
Absolutely.
And I always find it fascinating, because it's those of us who are watching that person's disease progress are the ones that are suffering. It's really not the person who's presented with the disease, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the art
Yeah.
around how the brain changes, you know, what it looks like, from even just a scan
Yes.
to what you see on the outside externally, is fascinating to me. So thank you for that
Truly.
work that you're doing. Continue doing that work, because I think there's so
Absolutely.
much to unpack there that it's really interesting.
And I think it is so essential. I mean, where the statistic lays right now is that 70% of us are moving toward this. We're living longer. The the environmental consequences of late stage capitalism are just like they are in our brains. And so this feels like a really important calling and almost like a compliment to my more experimental art life, because it is work and laboring that makes such a direct impact. And as you're saying, not just on my client, but within the family, within her family structure. Um, it was something that I felt called to because, you know, in this non-traditional life, I was like, all right, I'm not going to be able to buy my parents a house. Like, it's probably not going to go down like that. Although I don't want to, okay, I'm not closing the door,
I was
but
just going to say, don't speak that into the
okay.
universe, but I hear you on that. Okay, I get it.
But you know, I knew that my life was going to be non-traditional. And one thing that it's important for me to do is when it comes time to take care of them, like I'm going back home. Like that is one of the reasons why I am choosing the paths that I'm choosing for my life. And so starting this work at this point in my life is just it is about, yeah, both holding my family and also meeting a great cultural need. And the other thing that I just want to say is that, so my client, her name is Rachel, also responds to music. I mean, Rachel is very spicy, okay? She is not having an easeful time. That is not her journey through this. But I have this playlist of songs, and when you put on the music, like she is in her place of peace. And also,
Yes.
uh, as the memories fade and become more interwoven and more at a distance for her. The one thing that is not fading is songs. She will
Correct.
pull out a song and sing the whole. And so, yeah, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
this, I
Yeah.
mean, music is medicine, art is medicine.
It is.
And I'm just wishing your family members and the people who are holding them as much ease as possible, because it is deeply traumatic. It is a deeply traumatic experience to go through. And yeah.
Um, when my mom started presenting with memory loss,
Yep.
I started noticing it. And of course, I'm the youngest of my sisters on my mother's side, and no one, people were just kind of like, ah, what do you know? You're the youngest. You're just, until they really began to see that it was
Yeah.
progressing. But
Yeah.
I was reading someplace where it talks about the fact that the memory, that the fact that the people who, and this was really deep, the people who suffer from dementia
Mm.
are the people who God is protecting. And
Oh,
God is protecting them in a way because they've done the work that they needed to do. And
oh,
it's God's way of protecting them from all of the chaos that exists in the world. It was so deep. And
oh,
so that's why it's suffering for us to watch, but they're not suffering at all. Right?
wow,
They're transitioning on.
wow.
And I just looked at that and I go, wow, that's kind of deep, you
I have
know?
to write
Yeah, that's kind of deep. So it forces me to, when my mom got sick, it was like an ambush, and now three, I have two cousins and a sister who are all losing their memory. And it just was like, you start going through this, oh my God, is that going to happen to us? Is that, what do I need to do? What do I need to eat? What do I need? And the biggest thing that I guess I'm finding is that finding a way to have peace in my life,
yes.
finding a
Yeah.
way to embrace peace. So I guess one of my questions to you is, I know what's inspiring to you, but in the event of all of the stuff that we've just talked about, what still astonishes you?
Hmm. I I'm astonished by resiliency, and not just in our species, but in our planet and in the fellow, sort of like animals and beings um, that we intersect with. Um, I'm very astonished by the way that spirit directs our lives, and the way that spirit will sometimes make itself known and legible and clear. There was one question that was about what gives you goosebumps. And that was one of the things that, like, when I come to a moment of like spiritual recognition, that is the goosebumps. Like, that is the transcendence out of the body. But yeah, those moments when either on an interpersonal sort of internal space, or collectively, um, when spirit makes itself known, when we are able to push through situations that feel unbearable, I am astonished. I'm astonished. And I feel like at this point in our cultural realities, it is just that. It is the pushing through. Like, we are in the apocalypse. Like, things are really crashing and burning. Things are really exposed. Um, and it is a very powerful, empowering time, even as we are up against systems that we can only move with the slightest,
Correct.
all effort coming from us and the slightest movement. But that astonishes me. I think I am oftentimes, like, I'm just walking around outside. It's springtime. I am astonished often. I am astonished by our plant kin, I'm astonished by how good it can feel to be outside. I'm a very nature forward kind of girly. I have questions about my life in New York. I think I'm moving towards a transition, but yeah, I'm astonished. And then when you think about um, the way that our bodies are just an extension of that life and that diversity, I think that, yeah, that's what I would say. Um, there's a lot of art experiences, experiencing performance-based art, seeing a particular sort of work that just hits my spirit in a certain way that I am left with a sense of awe. That happens to me a lot. Like I feel, on the spectrum, I'm very much like optimist, fantasy oriented. I can really fall into something in my present. I feel very thankful for that ability, but it also is something that at this point in my life, I'm trying to know more about so that I can be in reality a little bit more, or balance, so that I can balance and have a little bit more control about when I'm slipping into a fantasy place and when I am focused on my foundational realities and what I
Got it.
need to do in this realm to be well.
Got
Um,
it.
but yeah, that's what I would say. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's heavy. That's
yeah.
heavy. So here's a question for you though.
Mm,
Let's talk about, oh gosh, I feel like we're just like, touching the surface, but
yeah.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about your wellness, right? What is it that you have presented or have noticed has been a challenge for you in your life
Mhm.
in terms of your mental wellness?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna say it two different ways. Um, I am navigating I navigate manifestations of shieldedness in my reproductive center. I am navigating and working through an inheritance from the pain and oppression of my Black womb holding ancestors in my reproductive system. And
Mhm.
I am navigating extremities of heat in my psychological body, extremities of heat and dissonance in my psychological body. And I say that okay, so that is one perspective on it. Another way to say it is I have endometriosis, which is a chronic illness, a chronic reproductive illness that happens when our endometrial tissue, which lines our womb and which we shed every cycle. It's what happens when it grows outside of the womb, inside of the pelvic cavity, and it can cause a lot of different problems for different organ systems, for the pelvic structure. Um, and it is something that they're really, although some people, it's really beautiful. Some people are cured by giving birth to another human. It clears it up in their bodies. There's a lot of ways to manage. There's surgical intervention that I am swimming in. So endometriosis. I also have a very large fibroid. This is the inheritance. And I also am dealing with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which the research is still very new as it is around things that touch women's womb holding
Mhm.
bodies.
Mhm.
Um, but the latest research suggests that between ovulation and a couple days into bleeding, there's a spike of hormones, and then there is a gradual rise in what the hormones that our bodies are holding until it all drops off and signals us to bleed. And premenstrual dysphoric premenstrual dysphoric disorder happens when our brains are allergic to the movement of progesterone within that cycle. And so basically for half of the month, I am, and it's different every month, the symptoms manifest differently, but I navigate things like depression, anxiety, hopelessness, suicide ideation, um, disorganized thinking, intrusive thought spirals. Um, there's physical symptoms like a bloating of the body, night sweats, but it is a real, like, it really,
Wow.
it has divided my life into days that I am able to sort of access all my good qualities and days that I cannot even access my belonging to the people that I love. So yeah, there are these three things, right? And they are all woven up into my reproductive health systems and the movements of those energies in my body, which is not disconnected from my relationship to creation, my relationship to mothering, my relationship to the mothers that I come from. Um, but yeah, since a year into bleeding, since the age of 13, I have dealt with extreme physical pain. Um, and maybe a little bit later in my teens, the sort of mental disorientations began. And actually, recently, about a year ago, actually, I'm in my anniversary season. I had to let go of my life as a professional dancer because the rhythms of my body, endometriosis, it's oftentimes common that in the early or mid 30s, there is sort of a climax of these symptoms. So I was really unwell. I was having a lot of flare up. And I just, a performance schedule is a performance schedule, and you have to be able to meet it. And I just was finding that both psychologically and physically, it was beyond me. And so I made the very difficult ego choice of moving away from what has really supported my identity, like was my access to community, so much, so many things, like was who I was, how I felt full, how I felt whole. There were also some other spiritual messages. I had torn my meniscus and I had broken my ankle in that last year of dancing. So spirit was speaking really loudly. And I had been receiving messages that I needed to move on into my own authorship, but also into the conditions that I needed to be able to heal, which are time and space to make medicines for myself, getting very real about financial stability inside of this very expensive city. So I am at a point in my life where I'm engaging in a different sort of confrontation, and I'm wrapping different allies and different sort of decolonized perspectives around what my body is holding. But yeah, those are my challenges. I also would like to throw in, and I do. It's a lifelong journey. I'm finding a lot of peace with where I am now, but one thing that has caused a lot of psychological pain for me was navigating my biracial identity and searching for a sense of belonging and self that can be very difficult inside of a racialized culture. And that took me getting very, very real about my own privilege and my own entitlements that my identity afford, while also like understanding the places where I can step forward for others who don't have that sort of access. But in my 20s, and it was all, sort of tied into complicated relationships with pops and just I don't want to get into into those sorts of like interfamilial
Right.
details.
Right. No, that's fine.
But in that the path to belonging, especially when with PMDD, when I kind of I can't always be like moving forward in my goals. That's just not the way that rhythm works in my life. That has also been a source of pain.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
those are the yeah.
So thank you for your candidness.
Mhm.
Not easy to do, but as we were talking, I said to you, there might be some spaces that you're gonna start feeling, okay, anticipating, um, should I go there, should I not? I'm
Yeah.
totally always comfortable with wherever folks want to go and where they want to stop or start. I think the thing that I find very interesting is, well, everything, obviously, this conversation, we've been talking for an hour, almost an hour already, right?
Look at
And
time.
and I feel like it's been really a very educational
Mhm.
conversation for me,
Same. Same.
but it's also been a conversation that allows me to really begin to have a ton of more questions in my mind, right?
Mhm.
And so the whole thing around othering and belonging,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And the conversation that's yielding in so many spaces and so many places,
Yes.
how we show up to work, if we get hired to work,
Yes.
what stance do we take? Do we speak for everybody when we're on the only ones at the table? What is it go what's the stance or position you need to take when you look like something that somebody else thinks, can you pass? Can you not pass?
Yes.
What are the perceptions that come with that? And where do you want to go with that? What becomes your new reality, right?
Mhm.
And so I challenge you to begin to go a little bit deeper into those spaces, because I
Mm.
think from that it will allow you to begin to find a space that's comfortable for you for on both sides of your culture, on both sides of your identity, and be unapologetic about that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, you are you are a light in this world. You
Mm.
are the salt of the earth for a reason,
Mm.
and you need not apologize for that. And
Absolutely.
what that shows, and so I will say to you, your your performance life in the
Hmm.
way that you thought you were going to be doing it, right?
Hmm.
When that changes,
Hmm.
as I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to me too, right?
Yes. Yes.
When that changes, we are stuck, we
So.
are discouraged, we are disenchanted, we are pained, we are lonely, we are hurting, we are
Yes.
all of those things.
Yes.
And I guess I'm challenging you as I challenge myself to think about it, that that was only a very small part of your journey and your purpose.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the other side of that is so much bigger. And
Yes.
when our vision in terms of what we see for our lives is minuscule to what God, or however you worship, and for me, I say God and Jesus, but however you come or you present, whatever that is, and how you are able to move through that, right? Your mindset is what it is. You have your dreams, you have your goals. The universe
Okay.
has something completely different planned for you.
It's own plan. And can I say thank you so much? Thank you so much. This is bringing up um, one of the perspectives that I really work to hold on to is a sense of like wideness inside of time. So much of my anxiety, so much of my fear, so much of my doubt is deeply rooted in time, which means that it's deeply rooted in white supremacy. Like when you really want to get into it, like the fact that we are trying to force the seasons of our lives into marketable packages, like
Yes.
these these suggestions of like certain milestones that we have, like certain patterns that our life should look like. I'm always trying to get outside of time, outside of like, and basically, yeah, to be in like the spiritual realm, because that like time is really like of the body, of the mental, of the verbal. And yeah, I appreciate this reminder that there are timelines, there are energies that are just outside of our consciousnesses that are working, that are always working for.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it makes me think about time a lot, and
Yeah.
how it is it is divine work to remain committed to our own seasons, to our own movements. And
Correct.
it's just so important in navigating the grief. I feel like I'm finally, you know, the ups and downs of the past year, the basically the ego spasms of letting go, like that's really what it was. Like I do feel on the other side of the acuteness of the pain, like I can see the purpose that that sacrifice has issued forward, and I feel very thankful to be there, and I want to remember this time of transition, because there will be many more, and there
Yeah,
will be transitions that do not feel good.
yeah, yeah. They suck.
They are
They suck.
well, I'm navigating a shift in my primary relationship right now, and it is the heartbreak. It can be just so suffocating, but when I
Yeah,
can be out of that perspective of like both of our spiritual journeys are asking for something else, and it is a privilege to answer, it
yeah,
is a find the discipline to answer.
yeah,
um
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so thank
It's
you.
you're welcome. It is a privilege to breathe every day. How about that?
Period.
Right?
To wake up.
It's a privilege to breathe every day. It's a privilege to wake up in your right mind as well, right? And so I think I want to really just touch upon something that you said about the time thing,
Mhm.
because clearly, you get to a certain age. I'm a woman of a certain age. You get to a
Mhm.
certain age and you start thinking the window is like getting like this, right?
Right.
And you are faced with many other things that you haven't even begun to utter because you're not in that space yet either.
Right. Right.
But I think that, again, what I want you to, what I guess I will share with you that I've learned or I'm learning is that when you're in a spiritual space, you're on a whole nother dimension of how you even operate.
Yeah.
And so all of the things that we're talking about don't even matter because they don't exist in the same way.
Right.
And to begin to articulate that or explain that to somebody when you don't really fully even understand it yourself is extremely arduous to do, but
Mhm.
it is something that takes you in a whole space of transformation. So
Yes.
this everything everywhere all at once situation and society we're finding ourselves in, it creates stress on this side of the pendulum.
Mm.
It creates this definition of what is successful. And then it creates this other side of where people are just losing it and they're saying, you know what, I'm gonna tap out. I'm gonna
Yeah.
step off the stage and I'm
Yeah.
going to take matters into my own hand and I'm going to say goodbye.
Yes.
I don't really find that there's anything on any side of that spectrum that I'm remotely interested in,
Hmm.
but I have to take that journey nonetheless.
Right.
And
Right.
so what I am learning to do is to take the time to find folks that are in alignment, to take information that I think benefits what it is I'm going, where it is I'm going, and what it is I'm doing, and to be able to have the peace and the wisdom and the discernment to be able to step back from things that are no longer beneficial to my journey and to my purpose. And that is painful to do. That is difficult. That is lonely, but it is necessary to walk that path on your own.
Essential. It's essential. And it's, I mean, our beings are so complex. Like I find that, at this point in my life, there is a very clear path that I need to walk. And it is the path of introspection, internal motivation, solitude, devotion, making space for these energies to really live in an authentic way in my life. And I'm having to let go of people and things that I love so much. And one thing that I'm oftentimes, sometimes I had been framing it in like, oh, my lower self wants one thing and my higher self wants another thing. And then it got kind of, I was like, no, I am
Girl,
one. There is a, I'm not, it's
uh-uh.
like, and then lately I've been thinking about it more in terms of like dependency and independence. Like, there it's like our culture wants us as dependent on as many things and experiences as possible, because then they
Yes.
can us things and then
Yes.
we buy things. And that dependency also, yeah, that my tendencies towards codependency, towards attachment, towards rooting my experience through being tied to something in my external
I
space
hear
as
you.
something inside of me. This is a real moment in my life where I'm confronting, and the sacrifice is so painful. Like it
Yeah.
is so, but I have gotten to a point where spirit is speaking so loudly. Like there have been denials, there have been redirections and projections, deflections. Like I have gone through all of the games. I've played all the games with myself to try to kind of have my cake and eat it too. And yeah, I'm praying for myself, praying for myself, and also praying
Yeah.
that I know that I have the strength to ask for help, like that I have the strength to root into community when I do not feel the strength to go on alone. And yeah, not just knowing that I am a part of that, this journey, this spiritual journey, this reckoning time in my life, it is not about just me, you know.
Yeah.
It is
And
about getting in alignment, which is what
yeah.
our earth.
Yeah. That and also I think the other part of that is being able to watch the little experiences of magic
Mm,
that you sometimes overlook because you're so into yourself, you know.
a,
You're so busy, you're
yes,
so
yes,
distracted.
yes,
The
absolutely.
thing that I think I
Ooh,
want people to know is when you're on when you're beginning to have the vibrational experience, right? That when you're beginning to move to another level of how you're being, it is definitely going to be times where you're going to be distracted, where your body is going to be something that's going to attack you, your mind, your physical, you're going to go through all of these different challenges because it's designed to distract you, to keep you from moving to that path. So that's a thing that you have to really kind of think about, I think. But the other thing that I I feel so fascinated by is the fact that being able to meet people like yourself who get it, you know, who may not always understand it either, but they get it. They know that they're on a totally different trajectory in terms of how they need to live life.
mm,
And reason, season, lifetime. That's people, that's places, that's things,
yeah.
right? Everybody that comes into your life, no matter how much we love them, no matter how much we want to be with them, no matter how much we think that they are the world to us and life with them is going to be so fantastic, sometimes they're just there for a reason, to teach us something,
Okay.
to teach us about ourselves, to teach us about how we need to move through this world. And this
Right.
journey, we must enjoy it while we can.
Mm,
And as painful as it might be to let it go, it is a must in
mm,
order for you to continue on your path. And that sometimes is painful. Many times it's painful, but
mm.
it's necessary. So I say to you, I want to ask you, what's next for you? Given all of that we just said, what is next for Myssi?
Um, what is next is setting up these structures in my life so that I can meet this calling. I'm really looking forward to living alone for the first time in my adult life, or for the first time in my life. I think being able to make an altar out of my home space, being able to control and being able to have a home where I am, where my impressionability, where my tendencies to be externally motivated aren't activated, is so, so important for me. Um, I am moving towards a very major surgery at the end of the summer that is it's called an excision surgery specific to endometriosis, where they're basically going to clean out my pelvic cavity because there's lots of adhesions and scar tissue. And, a year ago, or a little over a year ago, I started this journey of medical confrontation, and this surgery, it is not the end, right? Like maintaining equilibrium in my body is going to be a lifelong until I hit menopause and things calm down. But
That's
this
not fun either.
oh, okay,
That ain't fun. I'm gonna tell
let's
you
talk
now.
about it. Okay, ongoing, the work of a
Oh,
lifetime.
oh my God.
But yes, that surgery is such an arrival for me for this period of really sacrificing for my health. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I have been building a lot of my creative archiving work in the past. It has operated in sort of the more of a commission model where people would be like, come to my performance and make a drawing and then we'll exchange. But
Right.
recently I am deeply woven into the creative infrastructures of Black queer femme artists. So I'm really looking forward to these projects. There's Memory Fleet with Jasmine Hearn. There's Major with Ogemdi Ude. I think my work with Dominica Green will continue. These are artists that I'm holding in design and memory keeping work that is ongoing.
Right.
And I'm so excited about these relationships and these, learning a lot about capacity, sort of like emotional capacity. I'm excited to learn about this practice now that I am doing it in more of a full time.
Nice.
And then I also, with my work with my dementia client, we're coming to a point where she's needing more support, and that is requiring me to step forward in my learning around the disease. And so I really am looking forward to meeting that calling as well and expanding as a caregiver. And then I am also just looking forward to finding more balance between these different aspects of my life. Right now, my work-life balance has been a little off inside of the congestion, inside of the opportunity, inside of the depth of these collaborations. And so I'm really looking forward to finding the balance in this way of working and being. And I know that also is lifelong work, nothing
It
is
is.
like balance is active. It is active. It is
It's
not to arrive to.
it is. What is so what does art mean to you?
Uh, I think art is it's our life force. It is it is fuel for the revolutionary spirit. Art is the way that we demonstrate our expansiveness to ourselves and to one another. Art is medicine. Um, I think art is going to be, and when I say art, not just like the things that we produce, but ways of thinking, creative ways of thinking. Like it is our salvation. It's where we need to really be leaning into in order to find grace within our systemic realities. Um,
That's a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot. That's a
art and
lot. And
uh,
I am so excited that we've had a chance to talk and to just unpack.
yeah,
There's a lot to unpack still. I am so excited for you. I'm so excited to see your journey continue. Um, Tell us your Instagram.
so it's just my name. My first name is spelled Missy, Myssi, last name Robinson, Robinson. So Missy Robinson. And that is
Okay,
the place. Right now I don't have a website. That's my
that's
only,
fine.
yeah.
So
Would
on
love to
Instagram, it's at Myssi Robinson. Terrific.
connect. Exactly.
I am excited to have had this moment to share with you. This has been so edifying
Truly, truly,
and
truly,
authentic.
truly. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I'm gonna